Hi. Hello, James. How are you this morning?
I'm so blessed, just being alive, working, staying focused in my life, reaching people like yourself to inspire them and to share my experience in this world and the entertainment business that I've been in for over 50 years, I would say.
Yeah. So, just to let you know a little bit about how this is going to feel. You know this, but for the sake of this being put on YouTube later, my name is Jarrell L. Henderson, and I am the founder and creator of the Black Theater Vinyl Archive on Instagram. Black Theater Vinyl Archive was created in 2021 as an opportunity to shape the public record when it comes to the contributions of members of the African diaspora to global theater. Our contribution is legion and legend, but it is often forgotten because so many aspects of what we've created and inspired and shaped has been scattered to the winds of time. So, I began to collect these vinyl records of our contributions to global theater, whether it was cast albums, whether it was interviews, whether it was pop singers and jazz artists recording music, whether it was artists known for musical theater recording pop songs. And once the archive was built, it took a couple years. I have just under 600 vinyl albums of our global contribution. I mean, musicals from Africa, musicals from Europe. It's
Um,
all over the world. But once it's
wow.
created and you have it, then the natural question was, well, what do you do with it?
Right. Mhm.
So these conversations, these interviews that I am literally beginning with you, you are you are the first person to walk this road with me. So thank you so much
Wow.
for that.
Wow.
Um, these interviews become a part of that, and I believe that what I want to do, it's inspired by the panel conversations and the one-on-one interviews from the American Theater Wings archive. Uh,
Yes.
from the time I was in undergrad, which was the very late 90s, very early 2000s, you still had things on VHS. And I was a theater major, and so I went to the theater library, and there were all these VHS tapes of just panel conversations from the American
Wow.
Theater Wing. Um, and so I would watch them. So that just gave me a sense of like I've heard conversations about like Hal Linden talking about his process, or Austin Pendleton talking about directing Elizabeth Taylor and the Little Foxes and things like that back in the 80s.
Right.
So I want to do something like that, but for Black theater, because for artists like you, like as the listeners and viewers will see, you are a major part of our contribution to theater as an African American artist. And
Thank
you're
you.
one of many. There are so many people like
Yes.
you who
Yes.
have been there paving the
Yes.
way. And
Yeah.
so the folks who are in the entertainment industry know who you are.
Yeah.
They know how to find you because they know you do excellent work. But what about for the rest of us
Right.
who are like looking for people to look up to? So all of that to say that that's one of the things that I hope to do with these interviews, and it's just a public record, and that's where it stands. So
Right.
yeah, thank you so much for being a part of this journey and sharing information. I loved watching the interview with you with Jubilee Theater and
Oh.
talking about the play. We're going to talk about James is working on this masterpiece of a play that's called I Got the Last Laugh, and it's based on the life and times of Jackie Mounds Mabley. So
Yeah.
we're going to talk a little bit about that, but just to kind of give you a sense of why we're here.
Right. Okay.
Cool. If you don't mind, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit, and I'm going to talk about what you've achieved and accomplished, okay?
Sure.
Because in the vein of many podcasts and interview shows in the early 21st century, we're going to give our elders their flowers now.
Appreciate
So
that.
you got
Yes.
some flowers coming. So
Thank you.
for those who don't know, James E. Carter is Brooklyn based. He started his career in theater as an actor, but would eventually move behind the scenes in theater, television, and film. An
Wow.
Emmy Award winner for his contribution to Good Morning America, James has also worked at Jazz at the Lincoln Center and the Apollo Theater. Theater TV credits include As the World Turns and The Late Night Show. He worked at the Billie Holiday Theater in Brooklyn for 10 years as the light director and light designer. He worked on Broadway and off Broadway and tours on such musicals as Your Arms Too Short to Box with God, Smokey Joe's Cafe. He worked with the Boys Choir of Harlem. James worked on Mama, I Want to Sing. I remember being a little kid in the early 80s in Philly, because I grew up in Philly. I'm in Chicago now, but I grew up in
Okay.
Philadelphia. So when Mama, I Want to Sing was on the national tour, I still
Yes.
remember those radio commercials from that time period. He also worked on Coming Uptown, which before the interview, I've already told him we're going to sit down and talk about that play. And Sophisticated Ladies. I mean, come on, Black theater.
Yeah.
He also worked with such artists as Monica Usher, Faith Evans, Janae, and SWV. But that's just what he wrote on his website. There are photos, y'all. Go to this man's website.
Yeah.
This man has photos with Sherman Hemsley when they were filming the Pearly musical that we watch. James, one of the ways that my dad, who was not a theater guy, very traditional ex-military man's, blue-collar man's man, one of the ways we connected over theater, I brought home Pearly because I was at this arts high school and we sang Walk 'Em Up the Stairs. So, of course, me being me, I went out and I bought the CD. So when I came home and I'm listening to Pearly, my dad walks in and he's like, hey, I know this. This is Pearly. Yeah, this is a funny show.
Mm-hmm.
There's a He got pictures with Sherman Hemsley, Stephanie Mills, Raven Simone and the Boys Choir of Harlem, Janet Jackson, Method Man, Robert Robbins, Sherry Shepard, and former President Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
And that's not even all the pictures, y'all. When I tell you this man has been working with artists at a very high level for a very long time, I mean it. Wrapping up, a multiple Delco Award nominee, James received an Delco Award for lighting design for the production of Pekong. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes. Yes.
And was also nominated for a recognition award for lighting designer for Shango, Lord of Thunder at the National Black Theater in 2006. Most recently, James has been working on this wonderful, wonderful work that's been playing in pockets around the country and in New York. I Got the Last Laugh on the life and times of Mom's Mabley, and that's what we'll spend time towards. You know, we'll talk a little bit about his life, but we'll get into that play towards the end of the interview. How'd I do?
Good, very good so far. I mean, Billie Holiday, I worked behind the scenes also. There was something that you mentioned that was a mistake, but Billie Holiday, I started as a child actor. I was in the play that Me Nobody Knows with Tashina Arnold when she was, I guess, 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the Billie Holiday, when you said that you were there for 10 years, that's from acting to working behind
the scenes, yes. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So we'll come back to that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
And we'll come back to that when we get to talk a little bit about your journey, because I actually do have that's one of the questions that I was going to ask you in terms of how you moved from one segment to another. So I really, really appreciate that. I want to begin with a question that my partner Courtney and I, as you know, James, part of the What Do You Do with Black Theater Vinyl Archive also led to a podcast called Celebrating Black Theater, the Vinyl Archive podcast, with my partner Courtney Murray. She's Black Theater Nerd on IG. And so because of the vinyl is expansive, and it includes shows that aren't necessarily written by Black people for Black people. It's about, the contributions of African-American artists. The question of what Black theater is has come up a number of times. And we interviewed Eric McMillan McCall a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
and he was like, that should be the question that you ask everybody you talk to. So I want to begin this interview by asking you for your definition of what does Black theater mean to you?
It means being real, giving your vision and life of yesteryears and the future. Um, Telling stories that are not told, but live on stage, where you can feel it and be able to enjoy and be able to talk to those actors and those creative people that put Black theater together.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for
You
sharing.
know, one of the things that I've learned in this world is, and even now, I think people want to step out of the box and be able to relate to regular people or people that want to be inspired of their life or what can happen with their life. So, you know, doing live performance is to me is a major thing than TV and movies, you know, where like now on Broadway, you have Joe Turner, which is Cedric the Entertainer, Tahaja, you know, you have people like that that are making their Broadway debut because they now want to reach out and touch people and they want to be able to have that credit as being on stage, live performance, than doing a movie or a TV series.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I thank you for sharing that. It reminds me of, you didn't say it, but what you said and how you said it reminds me of the concept of the laying of the hands in the Black church when you
Yeah,
are, there's the call, in some churches there's the call of like who needs to be prayed for,
right,
and you come
yeah,
up to the altar and you like kneel, and then
right,
like members of the community come together and they lay hands on you and they pray over you,
right,
and things happen in God's own time.
right,
So
yes,
it's not that you're going to leave there and get everything that was prayed over you, but the laying of the hands is a communal piece, and to let you know that there's a community that loves you and that cares about you, and that there's a spiritual connection in that community that can be healing. And that's one of the things that we feel when we're in the theater, because theater is ritual,
yeah,
theater is
yeah,
ancient storytelling. Even when
yeah,
you got projection and puppets and things, it's
right,
it's still that spiritual base. And when it's Black theater, it leans into, it's like, people used to go to the Motown reviews and say it felt like church.
right,
When I
yeah,
saw Carolina Change with Tanya Pinkins, when I saw uh The Color Purple with,
right,
J Hud and Cynthia Erivo, when I left, it felt like a
mm,
religious experience. And
yeah,
when you talk about Joe Turner and like they want to touch people, it's immediate in theater.
right.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that.
No, no problem. It gets deeper.
Absolutely. Well, of course, because I mean, especially from your perspective, you understand it not only from like a spiritual, larger storytelling perspective, but from a technical standpoint.
Yeah,
If
yes.
this light doesn't fire at this angle at this time, you're not gonna get the shot you want to get.
And the color.
And the color,
Colors is important. There's color tones.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, all right. So, if you would, could you take a few minutes to I'm just read the question I wrote. um, can you speak on your shift? You talked about it a little bit in an interview I was watching earlier, where you were talking about your journey as an actor and kind of feeling like you had gone kind of as far as you were going to go. So you wanted to pivot to another aspect of theater.
Wow.
And so I was wondering if you could share your shift from performance to design and playwriting. And like,
Well,
was it like you tried one and then you tried another? Did it all kind of come together at the same time?
Well,
The Billie Holiday
um,
Theater?
yeah, well, I started out as a child actor, which I've done commercials and voiceovers and jingles. And um, back then in New York, it was a lot of us that was auditioning for one part. So at audition, I would go see the same people over and over for one role. And I kind of got discouraged and I was like, you know what? Let me learn backstage production. And I was blessed to be under Charlie Blackwell, who was my godfather. He was the first Black stage manager on Broadway who worked with Neil Simon. He wrote A Piece of the Action, the movie with Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier. And he also wrote The Tap Dance Kid on Broadway. So I was under him and under a couple of other Black stage managers during the late 70s and 80s. Ken Hansen, um, Harrison Avery, um, can't think of the others, but I was pretty much under them learning how to be a stage manager. At the same time at Billie Holiday, I was learning how to build sets and paint sets and costume designing. I was a young apprentice back then. So I've learned a lot behind the scenes. So I decided to just carry that and learn more. At the same time, I was writing little skits and stuff and started writing full scripts. Like back then, I have a play called Forever and Peter, which is a Black version of Peter Pan. And we did it years ago at Henry Street Settlement in New York City for 5 performances, and it was sold out. Original music, original script. So from then on, I started writing more scripts, TV stuff. Um, so I have a collection of some great content. I have a musical on Bojangles, original music, original storyline. So I look at a lot of the historical figures that are not being told on mainstream and just making sure that the way I present it, it's all copyright free or here's, $5 for using, a one step, whatever,
Yeah.
So I'm very, very cautious on production and the money making and just coming up with original concept.
Wonderful. And if I'm not mistaken, like you also wrote a play about Hattie McDaniel.
No, I was
No?
the light designer for
Oh,
it.
you were the line designer on
Yeah,
that.
that was at the National Black Theater. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I was the in-house lighting designer for the National Black Theater for I would say about maybe 5, 6 years.
All right.
The same thing with Flushing Queens Townhouse. I was their in-house lighting designer.
Wonderful, wonderful. So it all kind of happened around the same time. It,
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I just started learning and taking advantage of, oh, wow, oh, okay, yeah. And just going deeper into production, which is overall writing, uh, music. I had an independent label that I produced some artists under. So I've been doing music for years. I used to be with Kashif
Mhm.
back in the days. I used to work with his label and his production company. Um, I took dance class forever, So I could say I'm an all-around person that knows how to put together a project or a production. I've worked in TV and film for over 20 years.
So for thank you for sharing that. Um, I'm gonna circle back to Charlie Blackwell, but before I go there, because that's what I want to hear about.
Okay,
But
okay,
before we go there, um,
okay.
can you talk a little bit for though the difference between when you were coming up in the early 80s, when I was coming up in the late 90s and when folks were coming up now in the, early 2020s. When you look over it with a bird's eye, what are some things that you might encourage younger performers who are like, I want to build, I'm willing to put the work in, I just need to know where to begin? That was always my question. Where do you start? I'm not afraid of hard work. I just don't know where to begin.
Um,
What would
well,
you suggest?
I say to this to people, especially Black people, we know we can sing, we know we can dance, we know we can act. It's learning the behind the scene that is major and being a general manager because there are a lack of Black general managers, especially in New York, that hire people like us. Learn how to be a lighting designer, learn how to be a costume designer, learn how to be a cinematographer,
Yeah,
learn how to be a production stage manager because those are the leaders, especially a production stage manager. They work under the director. The director has a vision, and the production stage manager is the one that drives that vision on stage.
absolutely.
And that's important. And there are a few Black that I see that are on Broadway, but in terms of general managers and lighting and sound design, it's coming. But to me, it's like we still need to give each other those opportunities and not be insecure because you know there's enough room and job for everybody.
I love that. Yeah,
It's like looking at Tyler Perry and Spike Lee. It's like there's enough room for everybody. Take people under your wings and give them those opportunities.
yeah,
Um, and stop feeling like it's all about me, 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 me. That's what I look at and I see. And it's like certain production I like, and certain it's like, why is it wasting money? And I look at a lot of my stage stuff, which they're doing now, can be converted into a film or a TV. Live theater now, what they're doing is streaming, or they decide to make it a movie or TV.
absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe you could speak a little bit about, being on set and what that means. There's you talked about a piece of the action and Charles Blackwell working on it, and there's a story that Cheryl Lee Ralph told in her autobiography about like being late. It was her first show, and she's late to the set, and Sidney Poitier like meets her, because he's a director, and he's like, "Hello, Miss Ralph. Do you know what
Uh,
time it is?" So she
yeah,
learned,
yeah.
like you got to be on time if you're going to be working here. So, are there any stories that you can share? Just like,
I always be before time. Like every job, I'm either an hour early, especially when I'm on the movie set, because me, I love to eat. So I know Crafty or catering is going to be on the set at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So, I always try to be there early, meditate, get familiar of what you're going to be doing that day with scenes, with props, all those opportunities, you have to think about and not wait till the last minute. Um, I've known Shirley Lee Ralph years ago when she did her first Broadway show called Reagan,
yes,
and that was
yes,
with Oba Babatunde
yeah,
and Philip Michael Wright and um, can't think of the Calvin, Cleavon. I can't think of the actor name, but he's dead. He was in uh, Calvin Lockhart.
Calvin Lockhart. Yes,
Yeah,
Uptown
yeah.
Saturday Night was one of the films that he.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes. Yeah. And Cheryl Lee Ralph was the lead female in that play, which was a short life play. I think it was ahead of its time. But I've known Cheryl back then. And certain people I see every now and then. I'm not in their faces every day, but when they see me, sometimes I have to remind them. And some knows, I'm not James Carter that when I was 10, 12 years old. I'm a
Yeah.
grown man now, so they have to really like take that in.
Yeah.
I've known Samuel Jackson and Latanya for years, and every time I see them, they always give me love.
Yeah. Wonderful. And you have a picture on Good Morning America, the set of Good Morning America with Samuel L. Jackson is
Yes.
one of the many, many, many really impressive and inspiring images that you have on your website. Again, folks, go check it out for yourself. It's beautiful. Um,
Thank you.
so thank you for sharing those two tips. Before we pivot to the play, I want to spend a little bit of time because in my research, in my drive to learn everything I can, specifically about American theater, my favorite decade of American musical theater is the 1970s.
Okay.
So I've spent a lot of time thinking about those shows and learning about people like Vinette Carroll and Mickey Grant,
Mhm.
Melvin Van Peebles having musicals
Yeah.
on Broadway,
Right.
along with Raisin and Pearly and Ain't Misbehaving and those shows, The
Right.
Wiz, obviously. Um, so Charlie Blackwell is a name that has come up over and over again. And again, I was talking to Eric about, he goes, do you know about Charlie Blackwell? And I think I yelled into the phone, yes.
Yeah.
I'm looking for what Charlie Blackwell was a pioneer,
Yes.
stage manager,
Yes.
and was like formidable. He worked on Broadway a lot as
Yeah.
a stage manager, and he
Yeah.
was a black man, and that was
Mhm.
exceptionally rare. And
Yeah.
so, I don't know if my mouth dropped open when you said that he
Yeah.
was your godfather.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
what was he like as a man, and what was he like as a leader?
Yeah, he was a strong black man. I mean, he was fun. He loved everybody. He was a leader. He taught well. Um, yeah, yeah. And
Man,
he passed it on to me. He passed it on to his daughter, Lisa Blackwell, David Blackwell. You know, um, I love the man. I mean, he was great.
do you remember a moment in a show that he might have been working on that he shared with you that just made him laugh or made him smile, or like what were the kind of moments that really got him excited when he was working on a particular show, specifically a black show?
I don't know because I wasn't with him 24 hours, and when he called shows, I wasn't there all the time. I do remember, wow, can't even think of with so many shows that I was around him.
Yeah,
And he was always, when it came to calling a show or rehearsal, he was very focused and serious about it. And also kind of joked around certain things and stuff, and he was down to earth.
wonderful. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. I'll reach out to talk more about that because I really really want to make sure that I do my part in making sure that his name
Mhm.
remains spoken.
Yes.
Because there are albums that I bought that aren't necessarily African American shows, but I have them because he stage managed that show,
Yeah.
and that's
He
a
worked he worked a lot with Neil Simon.
yeah, yeah, that's a major contribution to
Yeah.
American theater
Yeah.
as a stage man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, So we'll take a few minutes, 15, 20 minutes, and just talk a little bit about the show. I Got the Last Laugh, based on the life and times of Jackie Moms Mabley. I'll share a very, very little bit about my experience. The weird part about being an old millennial is that, you know, Mom's Mabley wasn't around when I was born and growing up, but because of the time period I grew up in, I watched a lot of the Flip Wilson show. I
Right.
watched the Smothers Brothers. They were still in syndication
Right.
on like TV, and we didn't have all the cable channels. So I grew up knowing who Mom's Mabley was. You know what I mean? I didn't know a lot about her. I would learn later about, the Chitlin Circuit and what that meant, and, the
Right.
TOBA, you know,
Mhm.
uh, But Jackie Moms Mabley was an African American female comedian. She was in the vein of like, or often spoken with along the lines of folks like Red Fox,
Right.
Pigmeat Markham. I
Mhm.
think in one of the videos I was watching of the play that you wrote, there were all these images of like Black theater stars from that era, and like Ethel Waters was on the wall. And
Right.
so it just puts you in a certain time period of like, okay, we're in the beginnings of the 20th century. But Moms Mabley is mentioned in interviews with Whoopi Goldberg, Eddie Murphy, Paul Mooney. She was a major
Yeah.
force in Black comedy and helped inspire
Mhm.
comedians even to this day. And
Right.
so, where did I mean? You talked a little bit about this might have been in another interview. Just people weren't talking about. You just realized people weren't talking about her. Can you just talk a little bit
Right.
about the genesis of the idea for the play?
Yeah, well, first it's called I Got the Last Laugh, inspired by the life and times of Jackie Mars Mabley, which it takes place at the Apollo Theater dressing room, where she comes back a year after she had a heart attack to finish her performance. She's also being interviewed by a publisher from Chicago who was sent to write a book on her before she dies, if she happened to. We see flashbacks of her as she performed back in the heydays up until now. I don't want to give
Yeah,
the
yeah.
play away because I'm looking forward for people to come out and see the play. It's going to be in Vegas, May 1st till the 31st. Um, and then I'm looking to really get with people that want to take this to a tour or pre-Broadway or a limit run on Broadway, which I would love for Wanda Sykes to star in it.
All right.
So it's a comedy drama, and it's a great play. I mean, nobody's doing it, and I said, hey, let me go ahead and do it. Clarice Teller did a musical on Moms, which mine is totally different. Mine is more of a dramatic comedy and showing the real side of moms behind the scene. So we get to also hear about her journey in her personal life.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned. I wasn't going to mention it, but the other production because that was like Clarice Taylor and Alice Childress, and that was a
Yeah,
whole.
that was something totally
That was
different.
something totally different.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
but I'm
yeah,
glad that you
yeah,
mentioned it because it
yeah.
is. It actually speaks to how long it's been since Mom's Mabley has been really
Mhm.
talked about on stage.
Yeah,
That was decades
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Um,
And mine's is
yeah,
original. Mine's is original script.
yep,
It has maybe 1.5% of a joke that she might have said that people might remember, but this generation,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, you know. So I'm good. I think it would be great to tour. It's a historical piece that would make lots of noise all over. And I also did a short film, a 20-minute short film, and won over 12 awards.
That's right. That's right.
And it was just done at Jubilee Theater in Fort Worth, Texas, in October. And this past February, we won for Best Play and Best Lead Actress from that production.
That's right. That's right. When you were create, so you notice that this is a topic that hasn't been brought up. You say to yourself, "I'm gonna write a play about this." And you begin the process, and of course, you, as you said, you've been writing and learning how to. You started learning how to construct plays very early in life. So now at this point, you kind of have an idea of how your voice operates on a page.
Yes.
As you're writing it, I wonder if there was any mom or moms that that you were like, this has to be in it, like especially because she isn't as well known. I'm not asking you to talk about what's in the play literally, but just an aspect of mom's personality or even like joke delivery, because her joke delivery, I think you talked about it was different depending on where she was, right?
Yeah, yes.
She had jokes for Carnegie Hall. She had jokes for like the club in Alabama that like is a little bit off the beaten path. So, what are some aspects of her that you were like, I definitely want to make sure that this comes through?
Well, again, we're talking about the 30s, 40s, where you couldn't say or do certain things or be at certain places up until the 70s, where it opened up a little. Even now, if you look at these comedians like Whoopi Goldberg or Cat Williams or Eddie Murphy, you see a big difference on certain performance. The same like Chris Rock. If you look at some of his early performance, and now you see how things changed, the time changed. So mom was aware of that back then, but she was also real. So she talked a lot about her personal life. She talked a lot about friends who she thought were friends, and she talked about everybody, but she loved everybody and she respected everybody. So she was a person that fit in everything or try to fit in.
Yeah, yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, thank you for that. Final question as to the play. What do you hope audiences take away? And I know that it's a general question that gets trotted out, but it matters to me as a theater director. What I want the audience to take away goes to the center of how I structure everything I do in terms of how I'm going to tell any particular story. And so I don't really mean it in a try or throwaway way, but just like, what are some of the values that you
Well,
make sure that people will carry along with them?
um, believing in yourself, being real, not being afraid of who you are, what you're about. Um, so many things that a person will leave feeling. They would feel good about themselves. Um, they will cry. They will laugh. Yeah.
And she was also openly a lesbian.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know what I mean? And that was another, like, again, the 30s and the 40s. I mean, even
Well, she couldn't come out and say that. People know her as that performance outfit. So the way my play started out is that she returns to the Apollo Theater dressed up in a man's suit, a man outfit, looking as fine as you can imagine. And during her interview, she changes into her performing outfit, which people know her as. So this is where again you've seen the behind the scene of this woman as she prepared to perform. At the same time, she's being interviewed, so she's telling her life story, the struggle, the opportunities that she had.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that. And just kind of demonstrating, even as you're introducing someone to this kind of iconic figure in American comedy, and especially Black comedy, which is a way that we survive and move through the world. You also have to make sure that she's not just an icon, but she's also a human being. As
Yes.
you said, she was real.
Yes.
Um, and that's clearly with the reception that the play gets when it's produced, clearly with the awards that it's won. You've captured some
Yeah.
of that realness, and that's
Mhm.
I've tried the right plays.
Well, always what I always do, and I don't know, I can't speak for other people, is that I always put myself as those characters, as those people, and also say, wow, when I was this age, what did I go through? When I was this age, or where I was in Texas, what happened that day? What type of food I ate? What was my surroundings about?
which is
Well,
helpful.
yeah, yeah. As a writer, that's some of the things that I do, to motivate the writing and the story.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. As I begin to wrap up, I want to leave space in case there's anything that you would like to share, anything more you'd like to share. You did a really, really excellent job, I think, of walking us through the play, answering the questions about content, and also making it clear what you hope in terms of, talking to me and talking to other people in terms of spreading the word about the play. And I'm grateful that I get a chance to be a part of that. Is there anything else you'd like to add? If not, I have one more Black theater question.
Well, I want to make sure that I'm able to, or those people that are watching or that's gonna watch, are able to reach out to me in case they need a consultant or a lighting designer or, taking my plays to their city and states, not only just Miles Mabley, I have other plays that I have and I'm also in the middle of a new Black theater company in New York City that is going to start up in April because we lost Woody King, New Federal Theater,
Yes, we did.
and we are looking at all the other theaters that are in New York and how they are pretty much, on their way out and not passing the torch.
Yeah.
So I'm involved with a fresh new Black theater. You'll get an email soon. Um, and I'm looking forward for that, where I'm able to bring a lot of my stage plays to the table. But at the same time, I'm here and I'm willing to help others that are trying to break in this business, not just the behind the scene, but also in front of the scene, knowing the business and not signing and losing out.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the other thing that we have to learn. Don't just jump. Understand what you're getting yourself into. Understand what you're worth.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, um, and we need to just open up a lot of doors where, there's no Broadway house that we own or off Broadway house that's mega,
Yeah.
and that's there's opportunities. You can get a warehouse and convert it into a theater. You can get a old church building that's been sitting for years and convert into a theater. But we need to get some people together that has those funds and money and saying, hey, let's do this and let's take this to, let's do a Broadway house in New York City.
I can dig it.
Mm.
Thank you for that. And thank you for that, for laying out a vision. Man, all right. So I have one final Black theater question for you. And there's no particular order to this, and whatever comes to mind is 100% fine. Because I know you've worked on a lot of projects. So
Yeah.
I is there a moment, and I'm specifically thinking about like what are the iconic shows for me, mainly because I didn't get a chance to see them. So musicals like Coming Uptown or Sophisticated Ladies or Mama, I want to sing. I want to sing. Was there any particular moment in any of those shows where, or was there a show where you stood back and was like, wow, I'm really glad I had a chance to be here for this moment? Or was it just like it was another show and it's no judgment?
I I love the Wiz. My godfather Charlie Blackwell was the production stage manager. I loved when I saw the Wiz and then just the imagination of the songs and the dancing. I was like, wow. And there was a scene with Mabel King when she was alive,
Yes.
the witch, where she did this this number where the monkey went
Yep,
backwards or something. She was,
that's
I
right.
don't know if you, that was like amazing. And then the tornado scene was like, hey, that shit was, it was different. And it was like, wow, wow.
Yeah.
And you know, Coming Uptown was another hit show that I loved that was different. And it was like, wow, that's great. You know, I was around with Bubble and Brown Sugar, UB, you know, Ain't Misbehaving, you know, Sophisticated Ladies was great also. The singing and the dance numbers were like, wow. And the cast,
Powerful.
yeah. Your Arms Too Short to Box with God. When Jennifer Holliday was in it, I was like, I was there every night. So I've seen, as they say, how the 70s, 80s, 90s of Black theater, musicals and music off Broadway and on Broadway was great. Now, I don't know, you know, I've seen some production and I was like, really? Wow, really? You know, so the same thing with TV and films.
Well, I mean, the 70s and 80s is the era of Roots the Next Generation, Sister Sister, and I know why the cage bird sings. I mean, and I grew up, when you're in the big Black family and you're at grandma's house, and there are
Right,
just these movies that are always playing in the background, like The Color
right,
Purple and The Five Heartbeats.
right.
That was, yeah. And theater,
Well, that's why, yeah, well, that's why I said certain shows were great and certain shows were like, really? Really?
yeah.
You know, and in terms of stage, I mean, you know, I look at the past 2, 3 years of production. Mm, mm,
Word, word. Well, thank you very much for your time.
oh, no problem.
Much for sharing your wisdom and your history and experience with you. I
Thank you.
value you,
Thank you.
and I just can't wait to share a little bit of your story, and hopefully that'll help other people come and want to share their stories because when I leave this world, whenever that happens and however that happens, I want to know. There's a Sidney Poitier quote that I'm going to butcher, but it's like, for those who are coming up in the after time, after me and after my generation,
Mhm.
like, be true to yourselves and useful to the journey,
And know the business. Know the business.
and know the
Know
bit.
what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. So these conversations make that more possible. So thank you.
No problem, man. Thank you.